Welcome back, everyone, as we continue to dissect the podcast created by Ian Doyle in association with the Irish Sun and the Irish Sun editor Stephen Breen. We're coming to the end of episode 11, and I had a couple of points I just wanted to focus in on, play the clips and just comment on them and what Pat Murray and the producers are saying. But before I do that, part of a clip we finished the last video on, Caroline, Sonia and Lorraine have asked me to go back over it. And it's a bit more, it's very much more personal as towards Aaron. And it's Molly Staunton's comments as to Aaron's state of mind and well-being at the time he allegedly said these things in the apartment. So I'm just going to let you listen to the clip, and then we'll just make a few points of fact on it, okay?
Around Woodlawn Heights and the Bronx.
They said, well, look, do you want to speak to us? And she said, yeah. And she came out and said, yeah, I was stayed in an apartment with Aaron Brady, and he came out of his room one evening crying and going bananas saying his wife was pregnant, or his girlfriend was pregnant, and he needed to get more money.
She told officers that Brady was a wreck, emotionally unstable and clearly distressed. Staunton was worried for him. She didn't think he had the maturity or emotional capacity to care for a newborn. Brady blurted something out that rendered her speechless. That he had to carry around the guilt of having murdered a cop, and that he was the most feared man in Ireland.
He said, those guards want me, they'll be fucking after me, I shot that fucking guard, and this type of stuff.
So at the start of that clip, we have Pat Murray telling us again that there was another miraculous discovery as Molly Staunton on her doorstep suddenly revealed she knew something about the murder of Detective Adrian Donoghue. But the reason Caroline and the girls wanted me to go over this soundbite again is what Molly Staunton is allegedly to have said about Aaron. And she says that Aaron was a wreck, he was emotionally unstable, he was clearly distressed, and Molly Staunton was worried that Aaron didn't have the maturity or the emotional capacity to be a father. So obviously Molly Staunton is more than entitled to her opinion. But we would have to question Molly Staunton herself, because we're entitled to our opinion in relation to Molly Staunton's mental capacity and Molly Staunton's mental ability to be aware of what is actually happening in real time. And that was more than evident. So there is actually evidence of this, as Molly Staunton gave her evidence from her kitchen in New York to a court here in Dublin in relation to a murder at Lordship Credit Union. And she told blatant lies that there was no one with her, when there clearly was someone in her apartment who proceeded then to attack her and shout at her and tell them what you're fucking supposed to tell them. So that's the evidence in relation to Molly Staunton. She was almost not in reality. We watched what happened and what unfolded that day in the court. And Molly Staunton was oblivious to what was actually happening around her, almost. And she definitely did not have full comprehension of what was happening in her apartment that day. That withstanding, that's our opinion and that's the evidence as we've seen it. So if we look at what Molly Staunton says about Aaron here, he was a wreck, emotionally unstable, clearly distressed, and then she goes on to say that he wouldn't have the mental capacity to be a parent. So let's look at the evidence and facts. Shortly after the incident that took place in the apartment that day, Aaron moved out with his girlfriend-to-be wife, moved into a lovely apartment on Sterling Avenue, had a very nice car, was working in an excellent job, $65, $70, $75, $80 an hour. And this is all being substantiated by Homeland Security. And indeed, we looked into the situation where Aaron had still 2 work checks in his pocket when he had a stop on the street. So he had over $5,000 in his pocket. He hadn't lodged the checks. So this thing again of creating a story and perpetuating some sort of a terrible, terrible person is totally inaccurate and holds no water whatsoever. And Doyle and Breen would do well to go and possibly speak to, we'll say, Owen Reynolds or Robin Schiller. They're the only 2 journalists who actually spent a considerable amount of time in the court during the time of Aaron's trial. And Breen and Doyle can ask the other reporters, Owen Reynolds or Robin Schiller, as I say, what was Aaron Brady's demeanour during the course of those 130 days trial, the longest trial in Irish history? What was Aaron Brady's demeanour? Was he a snivelling wreck? Did he look distressed after everything he had been through? So what this podcast is betraying, again, is a total false narrative. And they're leading the Irish public down the garden path. And they're trying to cover the cracks and make excuses for the absolutely shambolic investigation and the position they find themselves in now, with no murderer, no gang, and the people who took Adrian Donohue's life are still walking free. And this is just another example of puke and gutter journalism, because all the evidence is there for the journalists to question what Pat Marry and Molly Staunton allegedly said about Aaron on that day in the apartment on 28 First Street. So Caroline and the girls wanted me to just pick out on that point, because again, these are subjective views, but at the same time, there is hard facts and evidence to back up what we are saying and to back up and refute the garbage that's peddled on this podcast. So we're going to continue now. Just a couple of points we want to look into. I think the next one is we're going to have a little look at the gentleman who Pat Marry says came forward and initiated a new part in the investigation, and we know him as Christopher the Layer. So we listen to that now.
Plagued by potential witnesses, not wanting to speak to the police. Something that will be explained much more in the next episode. Thankfully, that wasn't the case for some involved in the investigation.
The first guy I met there in New York stood up and I said it to him, like, you know, there's a reward of 100,000. And he said, yeah, I know that. He says, but don't mention the reward to me. I don't want anything. I am doing this for Adrian Donohue's wife and his children. I'm not doing this for money or anything of the sort, and don't mention money again. And that was it. He made it quite clear. There was no motive other than he was a good person doing the right thing.
At the beginning of that clip, you can hear Mr. Breen saying, plagued by potential witnesses not wanting to give testimony. And it's something he's going to look into in episode 12. And we definitely look forward to that. And we will show quite clearly why the witnesses who had given false statements didn't want to come forward, including Christopher the Layer. Now, we know for a fact that because of the despicable and deplorable and criminal acts of Pat Marry and Bobby Ogle in relation to the identification of Aaron when they were interviewing Christopher, that is the reason why his evidence was ruled inadmissible. But there's another part of that story where Christopher appeared to be standing down. Just to cover another little bit there from that clip, Pat Marry said he mentioned money to Christopher, and Christopher was absolutely disgusted that Marry would even mention money to him. I'm just going to pop up this. It's a screenshot of a text message that came from a friend of Chris's, And this friend was asked, did you know that Christopher got money for giving testimony against Aaron Brady? And this is his close friend. There's several pictures of this gentleman having drinks with Christopher. And he says, I knew he was given something, but never heard 100,000. And then the associate I know said to him, he's an ace gay, giving them a statement of lies. So that was the general thought of people, because the person who sent that message to Chris's friend knows quite a bit about Chris when he lived here in Ireland. And those last words of Pat Marry, for the commendable reasons why Chris came forward to give testimony, I think would fall on very, very deaf ears and be found to be an absolute load of nonsense. So that's the bottom line, and to Pat Marry pontificating that Chris got nothing. And there are other serious issues. We may do a separate video on it in relation to Chris telling the detectives he was married to Jamie and possibly having a girlfriend, Alex, at the same time. So there's all those issues. He may very well have been in an open relationship. And obviously, Matt Katsky from Homeland Security was behind the camera when Christopher was being interviewed. And I'm sure Matt Katsky from Homeland Security would have a very good knowledge of the workings and how sham marriages operate in and around the New York and Boston area. I'm sure he's well versed on how that illegal activity is ongoing. So we'll do possibly a video on that at a later date. The final bit, we're going to finish off the final clip, you'll be glad to hear, on episode 11, the undercovers, is just a few words about Pat Marry again and how he portrayed those in authority and how those in authority portrayed him. So just going to have a quick listen to this last clip from episode 11 of Making a Detective.
Pat was relieved the case was finally making headway. Circumstantially, the evidence was all coming together, and he felt they were on the right track to hold Brady to account for the Lordship shooting. Something, though, about Adrian's death changed things for Pat. He was struggling to progress further in his career. The Pat Marry of 20 years ago might have said, just put the head down and focus on the job. But emotionally and mentally, he was now over most of the trials and tribulations that came with being a detective.
I'd gone for promotion on a number of occasions, and I was always outflanked. So I made up my mind at that time that I was going to leave the Guards. There was nothing in the Guards for me anymore in respect to progressing to another rank. I'm not valued obviously by them above in the top table, and that's fine. That's the way they think. I've made my mind up, I'm going to leave. And I said to myself, and I made a pact with my wife, when I solve Adrian Dunner's, I'm out of here, and that's it.
Next time, on the making of...
Another little bit about Pat Marry and his state of mind. And before we just look at that, one word at the start of that clip is vitally important when he says circumstantially. So Aaron Brady's whole evidence against him was circumstantial, and it was tampered with circumstantial evidence. And we've covered that in the previous 150 videos, and it is there to be seen. We can see Pat Marry, there's nothing for him in the Guards. They're not going to let him progress to another rank. He's not valued, and that's fine. And I can understand a detective of Pat Marry's age or that ilk after solving a crime with the murder of his friend, and the reason, and there would be reasons to step away and finish at that time. But Pat Marry is stepping down because there's nothing for him in the Guards. He's not going to progress to another rank, and we have to ask the question here, how is this possible? A man that is solving these murders and have solved Adrian Donoghue's murder, allegedly, there's nothing for him. So it shows that the foundation and the base for the whole investigation was flawed, was faulty, was weak, was undermined, no structure. And I think that's vitally important when we've shown you through the 150 videos in Aaron's campaign, the faults, the failings, and more worryingly, the manipulation of evidence. So I think that's the end of our look at Making of a Detective Undercovers, episode 11. Now, at this moment in time, I think that's just over an hour and a half of interviews and clips, and those 3 podcasts run for over an hour and a half. And I asked the question to anyone, what evidence was there that Aaron Brady had anything to do with the murder at Lordship Credit Union? Is there any? And when we question the subjective views of the detectives and the journalists here, their subjectivity collapses almost immediately. And I think I've mentioned before, the whole banality of this whole thing and the whole nonsense of this podcast and indeed the investigation was how much time was built around Aaron Brady blowing up a bouncy castle on Katona Avenue or McLean Avenue. That is the standard of journalism we're dealing with here, and Aaron Brady taking a water bottle home with him and not throwing it on the street. So once again, I hope and I really pray that you, the public, have listened to these podcasts. If there is anything that you think we have missed, if there is any form of misrepresentation from Aaron's campaign, please point it out to us and let us discuss it. If there is anything you think we've missed out on purpose, we have purposely misled anyone or purposely misled during the course of any of our videos, you can go back over all our videos. And if there is anything, 1 iota of misinformation, please let us know. We're going to look now at Making of a Detective, episode 12. Now, I hope to get this done during the week, but we do have a busy week ahead. We've had some excellent response from America in relation to these videos in relation to Making a Detective, particularly when we looked into episode number 10, and that's been excellent. So I may have some work and investigation to do in respect of that, but we are going to break down, because we're moving into Daniel Cahill and the omissions. I've just had a brief listen to this podcast, and the omissions and the lies are staggering. And very importantly, we're going to start mentioning about the intimidation of witnesses and the release of videos on WhatsApp. So we're looking forward to going over that again and showing clearly who was doing the intimidating and who was intimidated. So we look forward to that. Once again, I thank you sincerely for watching the videos. We have serious issues with Aaron's Facebook pages. We've been attacked again, and we really need those who are watching on YouTube, please share. Please share the videos and let people know until we get Aaron's Facebook pages sorted out, and we can get the message out there. Please, I'm asking you to share and subscribe from our YouTube channel. So once again, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again during the week when we delve into Making the Detective, episode 12. I think it's called Final Papers or something like that. So, or Retirement Papers. So we'll see you for that during the week. Thank you.